Welcome to the GyrlSense show. I'm Maria del Carmen, your host. Today's guest is Maria Luisa Arroyo. Maria is an assistant professor of writing and first-year studies. She's been recognized and awarded for her published poetry collection and is an inspiring poet performer. Maria, welcome to the GyrlSense family.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that you are here. It's just really an honor.
Thank you.
I have to just start by saying, watching and listening to you perform your poetry, not only is it just inspiring, but for me, it just never fails. It's like literally you're being showered with wisdom. And a lot of times I want to do it again. But of course you have to move on to your next thing, right? But before we get to your profession, I just want to know a little bit more about you and let the audience get to know a little bit more of Maria.
Of course. So I was born in Manatí, Puerto Rico, but my parents met here in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And what that stated is that, so I'm a transplanted Puerto Rican in that sense. And for me, my identity as a Puerto Rican comes mainly from my parents. If they lived in Springfield since the 1950s.
Wow. Okay.
Mommy, worked at the Victoria Fashions on William Street, which is now a little, Italian eatery.
Yes.
And so this is where my identity was shaped. With that stated, one thing that became very aware as of a young age is that Spanish was for home. Mm-hmm. In school, when I introduce myself as a poet, I tell students, yes, my first language is Spanish, and they broke my tongue into English.
Okay.
Because, and I associate as a child the sonic of, you're in America now, speak English. You're in America now, speak English. Right. So I really felt as if I were living between two worlds.
Correct.
So at home I learned to be silent in Spanish. Mm-hmm. Because daddy was a traditional patriarchal, what I say goes, children are seen and not heard. Yes. And then in school, transitioning first in the bilingual program, then mainstreamed, and then all of a sudden continuing to develop this hunger for words. And realizing that the teachers praised me for learning more words. So when I went to the library when I was in third grade, I was so excited. So, you mean I could borrow books, bring it home, read it, bring it back, get more? And I clearly remember getting from the obsolete bookcase, a dictionary without a cover. Okay. And I brought it home, and I started reading alphabetical order, reading the words, putting dots next to them, and creating rhymes to remember their meanings.
Oh my goodness.
And that was a way for me to create a safe and not so noisy space, because I had 3 younger brothers at home, as well. And so they were 3 brothers against 1.
With that said, was it in the library that you discovered that poetry, or did your parents expose you to it? Were they equally interested in the art?
Well, they were interested in music. Papi was an amazing cuatro player. Okay. And before even my parents were born, he was a musician. Okay. He worked hard on tobacco fields and other spaces, but he was a músico. Yes. So playing the cuatro, and what I call his soul brother, Francisco Colón, Reyes, both of them have passed away, but they were soul brothers. Okay. He would play the cuatro, Colón would sing. Okay. And then you had other people playing the guitar. Sure. So with that stated, the music was in my head. Listening to Colón, where are the breathing pauses? Because what is music? What is singing but poetry set to music?
Exactly. I'm like, that's where
that's where it comes from for me. And so that helps me pace, and also too, creating music in my head. So imagine this: at the Brightwood School in the North End, I was in the gifted and talented program, and I was in the music program. Okay. So I learned to play the violin. So with that stated, Mr. McGinsky was showing me classical music, cross buns, and then when I went home, I would turn the violin down como un cuatro, like a cuatro, and by sound play out the music that I heard my father play and sing. Okay. And then put it back up and bow it.
Sure.
So that's what informs, the music, the pacing of my language. And Spanish definitely informs the music of my English. Right. And so in school at that time, again, they value the art so deeply at that time in the 70s that we had poetry. We had art as a given, and we had poetry.
That's correct.
So imagine, in 4th grade, everyone getting a composition notebook.
Right.
You know, having, you know, classical music being played in the beginning.
Yes.
You know,
I
and
do.
just say free write. And so since then, I've developed the habit of journaling. So I don't write poems every day, but I do journal every day.
Okay.
I can't live without a journal.
Okay. Wonderful. And I do remember I actually repeated the 5th grade because my English wasn't where it should have been. And being born in the Bronx, and I was brought here, and then I also spent a lot of time in PR in the summertime. So my dialect, like, where am I? Like, am I from the Bronx? Am I from, and then raised in Windsor as well, in between all of that? So where am I? Like, where's my language? And it was a teacher who actually sang opera. Through opera is where I learned my TRs, my THs and my Rs. So I totally can connect to what it is that you're stating. So I do appreciate that. Do you remember exactly when you fell in love with poetry? Like, I know what this art is. It's an art. It's defined.
In
that you
elementary
defined
school.
in elementary.
Because they had literary contests.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yes.
and writing poems.
Yes.
And as a child, juvenile poems. Again, I love the dictionary. If I were a bird, it'd be very absurd, you know, rhyming and just language and playing with language. Because that's what poetry for me is. And also emotional resonance. It was not about rhyming so much, but poetry is about emotional resonance.
And that's where I was going to ask. So how does poetry, you love to perform it, you love to choreograph it, how does it translate to you emotionally?
No, of course. Well, with it, so I firmly believe that everyone's inherently creative.
Yes.
I firmly believe that everyone's capable of writing a poem.
Yes.
You know, because everything becomes a stimulus for creativity. You know, and also, like I said, I do not write poems every day, but I do journal every day because I'm observing the world around me and my experiences. And that's the way I filter the world.
Okay.
You know, and that's going to connect a little bit with another question that you have in terms of, you know, how do students feel about writing?
Yes, yeah.
And the bottom line is it's the way the teacher couches it for the student.
That's true.
The way I teach, you know, writing at Bay Path, I'm a first-year professor of first-year studies there, and I tell students to get to the critical writing, that formal writing, you have to go creative first. So I give them creative writing prompts. I said, don't worry about, you know, is it, you know, quote unquote, not standard, you know, English or no, just write.
That's right.
Give me content. Give me rawness. Give me who you are, because that's how your writing signature is going to come. And then keep that's raw material, and you shape as a word artist for your formal standard written English. So it's an and approach. So they ask permission. Can I code switch? Can I code switch back into my African or Ebonics or Spanish? I said the answer is yes. Or drop my G's. The answer is yes. Right. And understanding there's a space for that. For example, you mentioned that you had these different dialects from the Bronx, de Puerto Rico, and Windsor. Right. Where is my language? It's all of them. It's and, never either or. But too often in this space, American space, choose one.
Correct.
Choose one.
Yes. And I think that's what then created nothing. It created silence.
And shame.
Yes, it created silence and shame, and it wasn't. So I think what's lacking are professors, teachers, educators, mentors who give that opportunity to the students.
Yes.
Rather than the other way around.
Yeah, squelching it.
Yes.
Rather than squelching it.
Thank you so much for that. So not only are you a first generation of college student, but you also studied German as your third language.
Yes.
Out of all languages, why German?
Well, for selfish reasons.
Okay.
At home, I wrote a journal. Yes. You know, and so when I kept it at home, I didn't have any privacy with my brothers. Okay. And so it's very selfish. So when I went to college, I was intimidated by French. Yes. Too many vowels. Yeah. And then I took German, and Frau Margaret Lichtefeld was my first German professor, a feminist as well. And she said, Maria Luisa, you're good with languages.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and I took German, and in fact, at Colby, I was fortunate enough to go to Germany my second semester freshman year. Yeah. So imagine first semester with Frau Lichtefeld, Maria Luisa, you're good with languages, encouraging me to go abroad. And when I went abroad my second semester freshman year, I felt like Cinderella.
Yes.
my host family, the Holex in Travemünde, they greeted me like, du bist unsere amerikanische Tochter. You are our American daughter. And for me, going abroad helped me to navigate better the institutional racism that back in the States, back at Colby College in Maine.
Right.
And so, because they accepted me, and they're very proud that I was speaking German and owning a difficult language. And that's why. And so when I came back, I said, I want to be able to go home for break, leave my journal on the table, and any of my brothers can pick it up. They can't, even though it has a script, they can't read. So that's my reason for going in. And also to be at Colby. Colby was in the 85 to 89. I was very grateful and fortunate to get a full scholarship. At the same time, a lot of institutional racism, a lot of unchecked privilege there.
Of course.
And so when I decided to major in German, I said, guess what? I can't fake it through a German major.
Right.
So I went abroad my junior year for the whole year as well.
Oh, wow.
So German became part of my blood memory, my dreams, my speaking. I fell in love in German.
Yes.
Yeah, to an Iranian.
Right.
So that's a different story.
Oh, Lord.
But I love language. And so I would joyfully disagree with people when they say, oh, I'm too old to learn another language.
Yeah,
no. If you have a good teacher, who's going to say, yes, make mistakes. I will not laugh at you.
Absolutely.
I will support you.
Yes.
And it's about learning the music of the whole phrase.
Yes. And I've had the experience from both ends. I've had that wonderful teacher that I praise, and she's still like right here every day. She has no idea what she's done to me, but I remind her every time I see her because we still have a relationship. So I have her in my life, and then there's the extreme. It was the one that shut me. It was the one that said, well, why are you doing it this way? This is the way that is, these are the directions, follow the directions. So it stopped the creative writing. It would stop whatever creativity that I may have had, and I think back, like what could have been, and like what that story that I wrote should have been different. What I wrote, what I end up writing wasn't really me. Those sort of things.
But see, how also speaks to your current awareness of that.
Yes.
So there's awareness, and so with that awareness too, and again, I'm ever the optimist, reclaiming, recobrándolo ahora.
Yes.
Reclaim it now. Yes. Granted, you can't go back to the you that at that moment, but you can recreate the stories now.
Right. And that's what, and I only bring this in my story form because I know that there's more out there that probably can relate, where, now what? In less than 6 months, I'll be 49 years old.
Still a baby.
Yes, but it still happens.
Yes.
It still happens, right? So when they try to like stomp or no, you can't say that. So now I do wear that crown on my head.
Yes.
And I tell them no.
Exactly.
I tell them no.
And we assert.
Yes. And
with
this
grace.
The other day, the best compliment I've received ever in my life, someone said to me, you know what I like about you, Maria? You don't wait for permission.
Exactly.
Why? Why should we?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
But that was a long journey to get to that point.
It was a very long journey. It was a very long journey. Yeah. So this is why I feel like, yes, when I hear you on stage, I'm like, yes. So I'm like, yes.
So you should see me in the classroom. but the students know that I'm real.
Yes.
And that's what I'm multifaceted.
I mostly appreciate. Yes, right. So speaking a little bit of your traveling experiences, so again, I started my world traveling goals, back in just 2016. But as I was thinking this through, I have many more countries to visit to catch up to your 12 country badge. And when I get to that 12th country, I will wear my badge. I've been to 12 countries, just like Maria Luisa Arroyo. So how has traveling and learning of all these cultures? How do you cultivate that into your
No,
craft?
great question. Because imagine my freshman year, second semester
Yes.
in Germany, living, breathing, writing,
Yes.
going shopping in German. That becomes part of my blood memory and creativity. So it's not surprising that some of my poems are in German, because it's associated to people, to an experience, to a space, and it's not ornamental. You know, and so they came out in German.
Right.
You know,
right,
or
right.
for example, when I went, I'm also, my fourth language is Farsi.
Right. Which
Which is a language spoken in Iran. My
Yes.
ex-husband is from Iran.
Yes.
I met him during my junior year abroad in Germany,
Yes.
at the Universität Konstanz.
Okay.
And so the bridge language was German. Unsere Liebessprache, our love language, at the time was in German.
Wonderful.
You know, and I taught myself how to read, write, and speak Farsi. You know, and so, but back to the travel, one thing that I want to promote at Bay Path University and for college graduates in general is that one of the best careers right out of college is undergraduate admissions. You know, that's it has the highest turnover in positions, yes, but it also has a lot of opportunities. That's where I got my travel in.
Okay.
So yes, I was in, you know, my junior year abroad, and Switzerland was just like 2 steps away from Konstanz. And I traveled there. But when I became an admissions counselor for 3 years, you know, imagine my first time going back to Puerto Rico since I was born to recruit. I went to Aruba, St. Croix, St. Thomas.
Yes.
I did 7 countries in 13 days in South America.
Wow.
And when I got the graduate school itch that first time, my dean at the time, Maria Luisa, we'll give you Europe. And I said, no, I'm going to get my first master's in German language and literature. But that's where the travel comes in. And as you know, even students travel abroad or travel away, it's just, it'll open your mind, and you're always open to wonder.
Right.
And you can't take it for granted. You have to leave your assumptions out the door.
Right. So we're both Latinas, and taboo, or not taboo, not so much taboo, but culture, traditions, right? When your parents are old school, right? Sometimes it's not intentional, but they protect that overprotection. So when the child does present themselves and have the opportunity to study abroad, you know, and if money isn't the issue, maybe they have a scholarship and so forth. As a parent, any parent that may be watching and whose son or daughter says, "Ma, Dad, I want to go here," rather than, no, it's too dangerous, because that's the culture, right? Yeah. What should the parent be thinking? Like, what should convince the parent that it's okay?
That's an excellent question. What I feel that colleges have to do a better job of is to include the parent in the process.
Yes.
So when students, whether it's recruiting them to come to that college or to even to go abroad, because I want to take that step back. My parents, I love them to pieces, all right? And then very culturally conservative, traditional. I was not allowed to cut my hair for many years, you know? And then the thought of college, to be honest, was not part of my parents' agenda. You know, to the point that I applied secretly to colleges. I still have my acceptance letters of Maria Luisa Arroyo, care of Mr. Gary Watson, guidance counselor, Classical High School on State Street in Springfield. I still have them. I kind of lied to my mother and told her the FAFSA was a tax form. But with that said, but the reaction, you know, was, you know, from my father is that, why are you abandoning us?
And that's where I'm getting.
You know,
that's where
exactly.
I'm going.
And for me, in retrospect, I understood where he came from.
Right.
And with that stated, it behooves colleges, all of them, from community colleges to public to private, you include Latino families in the process. You have, because once you have them vested, they will be so loyal and follow you through and send all their kids and cousins and whatnot to your institution. But you have to earn their trust first.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what the missing piece is. Not the bells and whistles.
No.
Because like, no, that we are community. We're not this individualistic concept that Americans have here. It's about the collective.
It is.
And when you invest in one, you invest in the whole family.
Right. Right.
You know, that's what that missing piece is. And then that way they'll see, yes, they can go abroad, and how do you check in? And, now with, FaceTime and Skype.
Right, right.
These are tech, oh, no, don't worry, she's in Germany. You can Skype her once a month or once a week.
Yeah.
Making sure, as opposed to this erroneous mindset, they're grown, therefore you shouldn't connect. And I said, well, joyfully disagree, because if I'm still paying the bills, I still need to know where that child is. Like my son, for example, he went to Thailand for Jan term. And he goes, Mama, may I? said, you don't have to ask.
Yes.
I will support.
Yes.
Is that what you want? Papi, yes.
Yeah.
Understand that I said, Papi, you're not first generation. I'm not. I went through that experience.
Exactly.
But you bring up a great, it has to be a partnership.
Yes, yeah.
And information, and not have it become divisive between the college going student who's first gen and the family.
Right. Having said that, coincidentally, tomorrow, Jada is off to London.
Yay!
Which I may be knocking on your door, but
no, but then you have FaceTime and Skype.
No, but that's the thing. It's nothing that I would have stopped her from doing.
Yeah.
But as a parent now, I totally understand where it all comes from, of course, and the protection and all of that. But I never demonstrated that. The minute that she inquired interest, absolutely, was her support from junior year. We're going to do this, and that. And tomorrow's the day.
Yay.
And tomorrow's the day. So, but when I do have those conversations, one-offs with just anyone, I'll still get the, how can you do that?
Exactly.
And that's that guilt, like, I could never send my, how can
that's you. That's you, and this is me.
Yeah. But that's the piece where I see where you're going with this, where it is a responsibility of the school to engage that whole family and not just the child, especially if you're being culturally sensitive.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Wonderful. And then now, tell me about the time you wrote your very first piece that is like your soul piece.
My first one, it's in this one.
Okay.
The America's Review. Sundays los domingos. Bebemos, cantamos, comemos, celebramos. That's my soul piece, because growing up kindergarten through 12th grade, going to college, not once did any professor, any teacher tell me about Puerto Rican poets. Not one.
Right.
So I had to do that discovery on my own. And Judith Ortiz Cofer was the first poet I read who said, wait, she's Puerto Rican. She code switches in her poems. She navigates this reality that between two worlds, that I'm not alone in this.
Right.
And she gave me permission to code switch in my poems.
There you go.
For the music of it, and also that it's part of my culture.
Right.
Again, get away from the ornamental. It's not like, okay, I don't know this language, so I'm going to Google it. No, it's part of my culture.
Right.
And so Sundays los Domingos, published in the America's Review, that embraces U.S. Latino poets and writers, embraces poems in Spanish or in English, or a combination of both.
Right.
That's where I said, yes, I'm a poet now.
Awesome. And I have to confess, so, this new music out there, the reggaeton, right? So, it's like, oh, okay. Sometimes before it was like, oh, they're singing Spanish. Oh, no, they've switched to English. Oh, wow, they switched to Spanish. Oh, at first, I'm like, what are they doing? And then afterwards, I'm like, but of course. But of course, why wouldn't you do that, right? Like, whether it's in that genre or whatever, in the side style, whatever, like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was, for me, and I think it started even earlier than that in the what did they used to call, like, the house music per se. They switch back and forth. But I thought that, wow, you can sing, you can perform in 2 languages, or sometimes even 3 languages. And that to me was like an eye-opener, like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And it's acceptable.
Yeah, and because language is dynamic.
Yes.
That's why I will joyfully disagree with people, oh, you're not speaking the correct Spanish.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like saying that American English is not the correct English.
Right. Exactly. And then was that obviously
yes,
your
and they
first...
accepted 3 of my poems, and that's what made it for me. It's like not just 1, but there were 3.
3. Unbelievable. So you have taught English composition,
yes,
creative writing, German and Spanish at the college level.
Correct.
and we're going to retouch what you touched on earlier. Have you experienced a lack of enthusiasm in writing from students?
It's not lack of enthusiasm, it's fear.
Yes.
So, for example, my recent writing, because I'm a writing professor, and so I'll bring up my recent experience, it's fear. So one thing I value at Bay Path is they do self-assessments in terms of they analyze or they share what they believe are their strengths and their challenges.
Okay.
All right. And when they meet with me and I read their self-assessments and I say, I can trace the tone all the way through the self-assessment where you're defensive, where you're discouraged, where you feel vulnerable or strength. And so there's a difference between skills and confidence.
Yes, yes.
And so if I create a safe or, to say, not even safe, like Professor Kevin Barlowski did an amazing introduction to our WELL group last summer with professors saying, it's not about safe space, it's a brave space.
Yes.
That's even, because safe space is you're in your comfort zone, but brave will push you out.
Yes.
And so when the students, in one instance, asked a student, who hurt you in your writing?
Yes.
Because you are a strong writer. So who has hurt you? And now you need to let that go and own it. So it's not a lack of enthusiasm. It's about the vulnerability of writing and coming into college with the anxiety, oh my gosh, it's standard written English.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you don't leap from here to there. Yeah. It's about about the process, and I'm here to guide students safely through that process.
That's amazing.
And have that excitement about becoming. I said, we are word artists. We're not inventing new words. We're inventing new orders of the words.
Right, right.
And so when one student asked me, Professor, do you ever get bored of reading our essays? I said the answer is no, because you're giving me permission to read your words, entrance into your world. Your control over your words lets me know how little or how much of your world I have access to.
Right, right. Oh my gosh. So for over 15 years now, you have facilitated numerous workshops on, and let me put on my glasses for this one, ekphrastic.
Exactly.
Poetry, multicultural poetry, and ghazal. Ghazal as a poetry form. Can you define those categories for me?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So ekphrastic poetry is poetry inspired by visual art.
Okay.
So imagine in Munson in April, this will be perhaps my 7th or 8th year.
Okay.
That Munson has an art exhibit and juried show.
Okay.
And then one Wednesday evening, 20 poets come together.
Oh.
And we will look at the art that's there.
Yes.
And then they will write in response to the visual art. That's ekphrastic poetry. What I'll do is warm-ups is give examples of published ones.
Yes.
So that they can see what forms, because there's no right or wrong. Sometimes people go, there's no right or wrong in poetry.
Right.
And so that's what ekphrastic poetry is.
Okay.
And then the additional joy is when the artist receives a copy of the poem.
Oh.
They're like, really? Someone wrote? It's like, yes. That's exciting.
That's so awesome. And then the ghazal?
Yes, the ghazal will be harder to explain here. I would love to offer. I've offered workshops on it, but what I wrote, I've been writing ghazals for many years.
Okay.
So they are couplets, and it's a form that is borrowed from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, from Pakistan, from India.
Okay.
There they sing it. There's a different way that they express it.
I see.
At the same time, Agha Shahid Ali, a poet,
said,
who spoke Urdu and English and other languages, say, the ghazal is as American as jazz. Oh. And I'm like, really?
Wow, okay.
And then so I did my critical thesis at Pine Manor College, on ghazal. It said poetic transmutations, 3 types of American ghazals. I've been writing them for years, but to be able to do research on it. And that's something I want to revisit. And then and I've been teaching ghazals when at STCC, when I did community college teaching for creative writing workshops, to like the Riverwood Poetry Series in West Hartford.
Yes, that's. I'm like I have you on my calendar, like various places. Like I'll be there.
Because and then multicultural. I'm expanding in terms of multilingual. For example, in February, I had the privilege of going to the Desert Nights Rising Stars Conference.
Yes.
I was invited to be one of 20 fellows. To teach a session there, and my session is resist the erasure of our immigrant roots. The power of code switching.
Yes.
Everyone has a story.
Yes.
You know, behind their name, behind their, if they go, I only speak English, okay, duly noted. Talk to me about your grandmother, your great-grandmother,
Right.
your great-great.
Yes, yes.
What do you call them? Oh, I call her Nana. I call her, that's a different language. You don't call her grandmother.
Right, which is a great segue. So what are some places that you have performed your poetry? Where can we go to follow you? And all of what you will mention will be updated and uploaded onto my website so people will have access. But just what's coming up?
Yeah, so coming up, like for example, on Monday, I'll be at the Microbard at the Care Center.
Okay.
So it's a mini associate's degree program, Microbard at the Care Center in Holyoke, and I'll be doing a poetry workshop and performing there.
Goodness.
Then, of course, at Bay Path.
Yes.
I'll be there in April because one of the poems here is called Come Libros, the girl who eats books.
Yes.
So I'll be doing a poetry reading, also with a workshop. What I tend to do when I do readings is either invite other people to read with me or combine reading with a mini workshop on top.
Okay.
So it's spontaneous poetry on the spot.
Sure.
So people leave with a sense of, wait, I can do this.
Yeah. And I did do that once.
Yeah.
It was so great.
So in the past, I've been in Chicago. I've been to Puerto Rico. Again, Ostos Community College, in New York. They had a Centro Journal.
Yes.
And they invited mainland Puerto Ricans or Puerto Ricans from the diaspora.
Sure.
To go to the island to read.
It's been an hour, an honor. I meant to say an honor, sorry. And it's been an honor having you on my platform today.
Thank you.
There's so much more about you that I know that I will get to know because I am lucky. I have that privilege to get to know that. You're my colleague, you're my friend. I love you to pieces. I look forward to your performances, as I mentioned. And I am so honored, as I mentioned before, that you are now part of the GyrlSense family. So welcome aboard. Thank you for coming.
So much. And I autographed this for you.
Thank you very, very much. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm Maria del Carmen, your host. Visit GyrlSense.com for more information about our guests. Join us again for more GyrlSense.